Hey, what's up? It's Mark at alchemist.camp, and today is not a screencast. There's no code today. This is just kind of a story time, life update kind of video. I've got 4 parts to it. 1 is kind of a shock. 2 was a failure. 3 is a success. And then 4 is some changes I've made to my recording setup. So first of all, let's see here. I was in New Taipei City, walking across the street on a crosswalk with the walk sign, and an SUV just slammed into my side. It was at night. I just picked up I just ordered some food. Fortunately, I hadn't picked it up yet from one of those Luwei stands. It's like vegetables and mushrooms and mixed stuff. Anyway, I went flying like 1.5 meters, and when I saw the SUV coming, it was crazy. It was like time slowed to nearly a stop. All I could do though was just process, oh no, there's this thing here and I have no time. I can't do anything. Then it slammed into me. I went flying 1.5 meters, and this crazy thing, I landed on my left hip, but somehow also my right wrist, like I had done it was like slamming a judo mat or something, which is probably not the best since it was pavement. I thought this wrist was broken. Turned out it was not. After I recovered, sort of got my breath back, I was bending it and testing it, and got up and got the driver's info and was in shock enough that I didn't even think to go to the hospital. I just went home, walked upstairs, and went to bed. And then the next day, I did go to the hospital. I was, had a horrible bruise and was not feeling great. And I started Googling, like what happens, like can your spleen rupture if you get hit by a car? What happens to this organ? What happens to that organ? Exactly the kind of Google searching you're not supposed to do. But I was fortunate. Turned out that I had no broken bones, no serious damage that they could identify, and it's been a couple months now, so I'm pretty sure everything is okay. But it was still a huge shock because, first of all, it was an SUV that hit me unexpectedly, and the thing had accordioned a bit. Like, it was very clear that if it had been a car from the 1970s or something, it would have killed me. I was very fortunate. It was a 2020s car that, will flex and doesn't weigh as much and has all these safety features built into it. But it was still like a big mental shock, and it made me reevaluate a number of things. And I kind of got the goal, I came to a decision that what I really wanted to do, make sure I could do, was stay in Taiwan longer. Now, this might sound a little bit strange, but for me, that was a big deal. I first went to Taiwan as a teenager in 1997, and I've actually spent most of the time between then and now in Taiwan. I lived there for 7.5 years, studying Chinese, teaching English. I ran a cram school there, then went to mainland China for a couple of years, did a few years in the Bay Area, and came back. I actually had been a digital nomad, but I just kind of ended up back in Taiwan because I had all these old friends and connections there, and it was very comfortable, and I ended up spending another several years there. So what I wanted to do was get back onto a track where I was on a path to get permanent residency. Previously, the first time, or the second time I was there, when I was there for 7.5 years, I was actually able to apply for permanent residency. And actually, I even could have applied for citizenship if I'd been willing to give up my U.S. passport, which I wasn't, and serve in the military, which, I was interested in permanent residency. But unfortunately, at that time, if you were out of Taiwan for more than 180 days in any given year, you just lose it and have to start over from scratch. It's a little more forgiving now. Now people can kind of like apply and say, like, I want to go to grad school for 2 or 3 years and then come back. You can sort of like pause it, but back then you couldn't. And I was basically starting over from scratch when I came back in 2016. And I was, I was a digital nomad. So I was doing like visa free entries. And then when the pandemic started, I did get an actual visa, like an entrepreneur visa, which I had for a year. But all told, I was not really very close to being able to being in a position once again where I could apply for permanent residency. So I did a lot of research, found this thing called a gold card, which actually I had heard of before because several of my more recent friends actually showed up in Taiwan on that card. And it's for it's for foreign professionals or just talent in general. So I could not have gotten that or applied for it really the first time I'd gone, like when I just finished school and I was a teacher. But having an engineering background, having worked in some fairly legit places in the San Francisco / Silicon Valley area, it's an option. And a lot of people that I met had done basically that and come in. Now it was a little bit more complex for me because I was not just coming in from abroad, and I had done the entrepreneur visa first, but I decided, this is what I'm going to go for. And I talked to everyone I knew that could help with it or knew about how it worked, and actually found a company to help me prepare my application that had experience with many applications and knew generally, what works and what didn't, and sent that off. And then waited and waited. Didn't get rejected, but didn't get accepted either. And in the past, every time I'd applied for a visa in Taiwan, it was generally fairly quick, like a few weeks. Often, actually, I think every single time less than a month. This time I had given myself 7 weeks of time, but the applications for this card can go much longer, which I later found out. Sometimes it's 3 weeks, but in some cases it's like 6 months, and the government just asks for more and more information. And I think stuff was slowed down because of the pandemic. So my situation was my time left on my current visa was decreasing and decreasing. And then I started thinking, like, oh shoot, like I gotta move, or else I'd be overstaying, which obviously there's no way I want to do that. That would make any sort of future visa applications difficult. And so I started looking at my options. I was like, because I know there were a lot of people that were doing these rolling renewals because of the pandemic. That had actually just been on a visa-free entry back in 2020 and just stayed and kept renewing every month. Turns out I couldn't do that because I had already had like an actual alien resident card during that time period for the entrepreneur visa. So turned out I had no options. I had to get rid of my stuff and move really quickly. So that ended up being this frantic rush. I generally believe in giving stuff to people who can use it when I move, just because it's the amount of money you get selling things is often way less than it cost you initially, and it's just really efficient on both sides. So for all the stuff that I had friends that I thought could reasonably use it, I just gave it to them. Then I tried to sell some of the other things, and I threw out a lot of things. And fortunately, my landlady was extremely kind, and I was on good terms with her, and I got my deposit back for the most part, minus a little bit of cleaning fee kind of thing. But it was still like this crazy rush to get everything done in time and get a PCR test to ensure that I don't have COVID, so that I would be allowed to take the flight to come back to the U.S. It turned out the first place I'd registered to get one, they couldn't get me the certificate until the next day, but my flight was going in the morning. And because of the timing, like you have to get the test within a day before your flight takes off for the US to accept it. But in Taiwan, most of the places that were giving the tests, it was not the same day. And most of the ones where it was same day, you'd have to get in really early in the morning. And I thought that I had the right thing set up, but I had not. And I ended up going to I ended up calling 12 different hospitals, going to 3 different hospitals. I eventually got one where I could get my test, get it back that evening. So I got it at like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, went home, cleaned out the rest of my stuff, and then got up at 5:30 a.m. and hurried to make my flight. Did it. So I guess that's a minor success. But the real challenge was showing up in the U.S. and finding a place to live, because I am a U.S. citizen. I was born there. I grew up there, but I didn't grow up with my parents. I grew up with my grandparents, and the house where I grew up was that was sold a couple years ago, and that was during COVID. So actually, this is a whole other story. It was really kind of sad for me. I'd been going back to visit my grandmother every other year, but couldn't go back because it was too dangerous for her because of COVID. And then all of a sudden, she needed to move into an assisted care center. And she has some family nearby that could help take care of her to some degree. But she was in this huge, 5-bedroom house. When I was in high school, her parents were there with me. Her husband was there. Me, it was like 5 of us. My uncle had been there part of the time. So it was way too big for a near 90-year-old lady. So that was not an option. I couldn't go back there to Colorado. And my grandfather had passed away like 20 years ago. So the options I was looking at were like, well, are there, like short-term Airbnbs, or I should say longish term Airbnbs, or hostels, or long-term hotels. And it's really not that easy or cheap to do that in Colorado, because Colorado's not, it's not really a destination for immigrants or for tourists so much, except maybe, I guess the ski slopes are, but California ended up being just easier for me. Easier as like a landing place. There were a lot of fairly inexpensive places, like hostel hotels and that kind of thing, where I could make my entry to the U.S. and have an easy time, like getting just all the basic stuff I need spun up, like getting a SIM card, getting like a current ID and stuff like that. So I did that, and then found that it's not so easy to rent an apartment in California, especially if you're coming from abroad, and especially if you're not, I guess, like you wouldn't already be working there if you're coming from abroad. So essentially, California is a super tenant-friendly state. So landlords have to worry about the possibility that I would just show up and, I don't know, like do math and destroy the apartment, and it would take them, who knows how much money in 6 months to get me out. So from their point of view, like they want it to be as safe as possible. They want to be super risk adverse. So every place I looked at had similar kinds of applications, and I didn't even get rejected. I got pre-rejected from apartment after apartment after apartment. I would apply, or I would request to apply, and they'd be like, no, you can't apply. And when I finally did get to ones where I could apply, it's like this very similar long form asking, what was the address of where you stayed before, what state was it in. It's like there's no option even for it not being in the US in many cases. Who is a landlord, what's their phone number. Same thing for like previous employers. On the good side, I had good credit. I have good credit, but even there, it's like a little sparse, because most of my adult life, almost all of my adult life, has been outside the U.S. So there's just not as much info there as there would be on most applications. So it was a bit of a hustle, and I think I probably overpaid a little bit for this place, although, not to the degree that it would have been if I'd gone back to San Francisco. This time I decided to come to Southern California. So I'm in a greater LA area, and like this place is close to public transit. It's a little bit small, but it's not, it's actually like compared to like northern Taiwan apartments, it's fairly spacious, and everything's pretty nice. So that feels like a huge win. I am back in the U.S. and I have a place to live. I have internet set up. I have computer setup, moving desk, or not moving desk, convertible standing desk. And speaking of these upgrades, I now, you may see, I do not have a boom arm with my Q2U Samsung microphone anymore. I have microphone that's actually close enough to touch my microphone and my mouth, just barely out of the frame. And what I have now is a Rode Video Mic Pro Plus. So just a quick recap. I started off with just no external mic, and I just used my phone or my computer, which was, not great, but it was like something for the first few screencasts and videos. Then I got this little shotgun mic here. This was about $10 US. It's was an Audio Technica AT9933 USB mic. USB mic just made it really easy to plug in. And even this thing, like being a $10 mic, it's like below normal entry-level mic. It was still way better than the built-in mic in a phone, or especially the laptop I had then. So that was a huge win. It was enough to record the first year worth of screencasts. And since it's a shotgun mic, it wasn't picking up sounds like my air conditioner. It was basically just you'd hear like poor-ish voice quality of me, but you wouldn't hear like any other distracting sounds. So that was a win. After that, in 2018, I got Blue Yeti. It was a Yeti Nano, actually, which is the same thing as a Blue Yeti, just slightly smaller and a few less options. And that's like a typical entry-level mic. Problem is, it's not a shotgun. It's a cardioid, like a heart shape noise profile. So you'll catch more sound from what's in front of the mic than what's behind it. But it's not like a shotgun where it isolates everything. The one that I got after that was a Samsung 2QU, which is a dynamic mic, which means it basically has to be about this close to your mouth or else you'll get horrible quality. But the good side, like someone can literally have a jackhammer outside and like it won't really get picked up on the mic. So that one is great. Problem is that boom arm, like in the middle of the frame, it's really distracting because sometimes I have to look around it to even see my code if I got it in the optimal position for recording. So what I wanted to do was get a mic that was less of a distraction, less hassle for me, but still try to keep the external sound to a minimum. So this Rode Video Mic Pro Plus, so I guess now it is in the frame. It's a shotgun mic, so it will not get too many sounds from other directions. It's very directional. If I'm just as close to the mic, but I'm going around to the side of it, the sound that you hear should be decreasing quite a bit. And if I were actually behind it, you'd hear almost nothing. However, it's not dynamic. So it's probably I'll let you be the judge, but my guess is this is going to be like 95% of the quality of what the previous one was, but it's going to be way more convenient for me, which is good because the more convenient, the more videos I make. So that's basically my update. I got slammed by a big SUV unexpectedly. Had to leave Taiwan after deciding that was like what I didn't want to do. But then I was successful in getting settled in and set up in the US actually it took me 10 days. 10 days from landing to getting this apartment because I was just like going out and walking all over the place and calling lots of places and like really searching hard. And then got a few better things set up for my computer. And I gotta say, one thing that I'm realizing, just having come back to the US after being gone since 2015, is Amazon is amazing. Like, I used Amazon when I was living abroad, but if you're living here, it's like you get everything, and shipping is basically free, and it's super fast. So it's been pretty nice. As far as screencasts, I am working on some more screencasts. Don't worry about that. I should have one for you within a week. And I also have another video that I recorded in Taiwan but did not finish editing. That was it's like my learning goals for this year. And it was really long because I had all kinds of things that I was excited about, so which is why I haven't finished editing the entire thing yet, because it was so long. But I'll probably put out like a clipped or a redone shorter version of that video at some point as well. So I hope all of you are doing well, and I will see you next time.